Hi guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Today we are doing a family portrait on the house of YSL. This will probably be one of the last family portraits that I do, mostly because we've gone through all the major houses that I have many bottles to show. The rest are 2, 3, 4 bottles on houses, so I'm probably not going to waste time to do family portraits. Then we'll move on to some other things after these family portraits are done. I know YSL is a very famous designer up there, big three. They used to be considered the best, up there with Chanel and Dior. But before we jump into the YSL line, I want to show you my scent of the day. This is a fragrance from Paul Sebastian, and it's called Fine Cologne. You can see it right there. Fine Cologne, and this is actually the vintage. Anuj hunted this down for me. As you can see, it says distributed by Paul Sebastian Inc. It was later purchased by EA Fragrances, the same house that bought Halston, for example, and they reformulated it. So this is the vintage. And I just wanted to give you a couple fragrances that it reminds me of. It's a very musky, lavendery fragrance. I like what the fragrance turns into. It actually came out in 1979. But the first couple hours, it almost feels like there's this beautiful fragrance underneath that's just suffocated by this musk. But if you like musk, if you like musk's Kublai Khan, but you want something, a little bit less animalic, this is one to at least check out. It's nothing like musk's Kublai Khan from Serge Lutens as far as smell goes. But if you like musky fragrances, I'll show you a couple old school fragrances this reminds me of. Number one, Coty Musk. This is also a vintage. It doesn't come in this package anymore, but I think I paid $6 for this or something. Look how 1970s that is, though, from the house of Coty Musk. This is probably the closest smell-wise, and then if you know fragrances like this, Jovan Sex Appeal, also a vintage formulation. They've changed a couple of things on the presentation since this release. This adds a little bit more patchouli and goes more towards the Givenchy Gentleman from 1974 route. But I will be doing full reviews on these classic masculines. Again, this came out in 1979, and it is still available for purchase. I don't know what the modern formulation is, but these are the type of fragrances that I'll be reviewing on my channel once I start doing individual reviews. So that is my scent of the day. Okay, now that we've wasted a couple minutes, we're going to move on to the YSL house line. So the first one is a decant that I actually got in the mail today, this morning. And I got it from my friend Mudasir, who I buy these off of Base Notes. And this is YSL Tuxedo. And this is I get these decants because this is a very expensive fragrance. To buy a full bottle of it would be close to $300. So, buying these 10 ml decants allows me to stretch my dollar a little bit more. But I've actually never sprayed this before. I've never smelled it. So I'm going to do a first review real quick, or first impressions, I should say, on camera for you guys. While I let this settle, the notes are violet leaf, coriander, bergamot in the top, rose, black pepper, and lily of the valley in the mid, and then ambergris, patchouli, and bourbon vanilla in the base. And I can see why people talk about this as far as a pleasing scent. It's something that's pretty mass appealing. The cheap alternative to this is apparently a fragrance called Rochas Mustache Eau de Parfum, not the EDT. The EDT was created by Edmund Rudnitska long ago. The Eau de Parfum is the newer version that's supposed to smell very similar to this for 30, 40, 50 bucks instead of $200 or $300 like Tuxedo. But this has a very interesting freshness to it. I get the violet leaf right away. I get the pepper. I don't get a huge floral note yet. Maybe once the mid hits, I'll pick up some of the rose and lily of the valley. The patchouli and bourbon vanilla, there is a base pretty evident, and You can tell it's high quality ingredients. This is the kind of niche, this would maybe be a good starter fragrance for someone who's not gotten into niche. Maybe they wear a lot of designers. They want something, you know, Creed-like to dip their toe into niche that is, you know, higher quality ingredients they're made with, but not too challenging to the nose. So I'm glad I have a decan of this. I'm glad I didn't splurge and blind buy a full bottle. For where I'm at in my journey, this is probably not full bottle worthy, but in the summer, since I live in Texas, this will get a lot of wear. By the way, if you noticed, I'm wearing a jersey today. It's because it is Sunday in the USA and American Football Day. And even though I live in Texas, I am a Raider fan. I probably just lost 10 subscribers by saying that, but that's why I'm wearing the jersey today. We did win, and that's why I'm in a relatively good mood. But probably won't make the playoffs anyways, but still good to get a win. Okay, next. Next is a fragrance called M7. And this is known in the community to be the first fragrance that apparently used oud. Now, there's some rumblings that maybe that's not true. Maybe Balenciaga Pour Homme was the first fragrance to use oud in the designer realm, but this is officially what a lot of people will point to. This came out in, well, this is the reformulated version, by the way, that YSL did in 2011. This is the original bottle. This is what it looked like originally. You can see it's got the atomizer off to the side, and it has this brownish looking bottle, very manly. And I bought a tester because, again, when you're collecting, you have to kind of get what you can get sometimes. So I bought a tester, and you can see the notes here. Let me see if I can show this to you. I don't know why we've got a glare today, maybe because it's nighttime. But you can see the notes listed on the tester, literally 3 notes: bergamot, agarwood, vetiver, amber. 4 notes listed on the tester bottle. On the new bottle, they actually list more. So you can see there, it is more notes listed on the new bottle. There's the one that stands out to me the most, that's here, that's not here, is myrrh, and they've apparently removed the vetiver. So there are some changes. You know, this one apparently had rosemary in the top, and this one did not. So there are some differences. I will tell you that if you want a designer oud, which, by the way, this came out in the original that Tom Ford, this came out when Tom Ford was creative director of YSL, and I believe it came out in the early 2000s, 2002, yes, 2002. And there's more Tom Ford releases, you know, coming up. He released some amazing perfumes when he was creative director of YSL, and that really catapulted him to, you know, then go out and create his own brand. But I love this fragrance. There's this cola vibe when you first spray it. This is one I'll definitely do a review on. I think both of these are discontinued. This version is definitely discontinued. Then they released this Oud Absolu. I don't know if this is also discontinued, but the prices on these are also kind of getting higher and harder to find. So if you want a designer oud that's easy to wear, if you can find this, or if you don't mind paying a couple $100 like I did for a partial, you know, tester, but don't pay $500 for this. I mean, don't, just out of principle, don't give the eBay pirates that kind of money for a bottle like this. You know, try to find this for 50, 60, 70, 80 bucks if you can, if that's the case. But I much prefer the original, surprise, surprise, over the reformulated version. But this is still a nice fragrance. I just always reach for this whenever I want to wear it. So M7, one of the great all-time designer ouds, and I'll do full reviews on a lot of these once I get going there. Okay, next. Next is a fragrance that is known in the community as being a quote-unquote dad fragrance. This is like the proverbial dad smell, and it's Rive Gauche. Rive Gauche Pour Homme, I should say. Be careful, because there is a Rive Gauche and it's for women. This is Rive Gauche Pour Homme, another Tom Ford release. And this is basically shaving foam in a bottle is what it smells like. There's this beautiful star anise note in the top mixed with rosemary that I absolutely love. Then there's this lavender geranium freshness. Geranium can sometimes come off as being a little bit minty. And then there's this patchouli, oak moss, gaiac wood, and vetiver base. But this is basically, to me, this is a very modern, clean fougere. I wear this in the summer. People say they wear this in the winter. For me, this is a summer scent. I like wearing the heavier stuff in the winter, like this. This is more of a winter scent for me. Rive Gauche Pour Homme, one of these bottles, by the way, this was also reformulated, I should say. So this was the original tin can bottle. This is a 75 ml, 2.5 ounce. And the top comes off like so, and there's a little atomizer. Very interesting presentation. I like what they did here. It literally looks like a shaving foam, shaving cream, bottle. And they did away with this presentation. They then stuck it in these, again, just very basic bottles like this. And they did the same thing for the next one I'm going to show you. And then I think they discontinued the whole line, if I'm not mistaken. They whacked all of these classic men's fragrances. And so YSL is a house to me that just really fell off of a cliff. In the old days, some of these other fragrances I'm about to show you are some of my absolute favorites. And, they were competing with the likes of Dior, Chanel, and then all of a sudden I think they've really, fallen off a cliff with YSL Y and all that stuff. And you could argue that that's a good fragrance, but I won't hear it. I mean, it's not for me, but Rive Gauche Pour Homme, if you can find the tin can bottle, get it. If not, this was a good version in these little square bottles, but I hear even these are getting harder and harder to find. But this is a great, if you want to smell clean, manly, if I think of a fragrance that maybe I want my daughter to associate with me, with dad, I think this is one that I would put towards the top of the list because it just has such a comforting vibe. If you remember being a kid and your dad in the bathroom shaving, those mornings, those memories, this is what this kind of reminds you of. And in that, I love the note of star anise, like in YSL Pour Homme and stuff like that. Lolita Lampica, I love the star anise note, and it's done to perfection here. So I'll do a full review on all these in due time, but that's Rive Gauche Pour Homme. Next is a citrus fragrance, and it came out in 1971. It was created by the great Raymond Chaillan, and this is YSL Pour Homme. I already showed this bottle, I think, before when I was comparing it to Eau Sauvage. I prefer this to Eau Sauvage. This came out 5 or 6 years later, if I'm not mistaken. It still has that citrus lemony top, with lemon verbena, petitgrain, lavender, but then it just feels like it's a little bit heavier. It has some, spices like clary sage, marjoram, rosemary. There is an old school carnation note in here, but this is one that I wear again in the high heat of summer. Raymond Chaillan did a fantastic job on this fragrance. As far as citrus fragrances go, this is one of the best. There is another one that instead of, and again, same story though with the bottle. This bottle was discontinued with the built-in sprayer. They then put it in the, men's masculine collection with the standard bottles to save money probably because, it's more expensive to create different bottles for every single fragrance. So, this is one of the things that I really miss about vintage fragrances, the time that went into, this can't cost a lot of money, it's a tin can, but, they axe this, they put it in something generic, and while, yes, this is a nice masculine bottle, the cap only fits sideways, so it's got that, little piece of art to it. It's still, I prefer the older bottles, but they did away with the, Pour Homme like this, and they stuck it in this collection, and now it's all discontinued. But there was a flanker to this, and it was called YSL Pour Homme Hot Concentré. It said it right here. Instead of EDT, it said Hot Concentré, and it was black. It had this black cap to it. And if you like citrus fragrances, I just have so many. I told you I have Roja Scandal that I would probably wear and get the exact same enjoyment out of something like this. I have a whole bottle of Eau Sauvage, which is, again, not my thing, but maybe I'll drench myself in that stuff one summer. But this is probably one of the best in this citrus style, up there with Roja's Scandal. And so if you like that style of fragrance, check this out. The Hot Concentrate version, the black bottle top, came out, I think, 10 or 12 years after this. This was 1971. I think the Hot Concentrate was 1983. So, you know, give or take a decade after they released that. And it's supposed to be amped up and heavier. And I, you know, with my citrus fragrances, I do like them heavier. It's just some of them are just so light that it's not my favorite, but I'm very glad to have a bottle because the eBay prices on these original bottles are getting absolutely, you know, it's out of this world. Some of the prices people are trying to get for these vintage fragrances. So that is the classic YSL Pour Homme. And next we have one of my favorite fragrances of all time. And I have two bottles, actually. This is one that I have a backup of. If I have a backup, you know I love a fragrance. And that is YSL Jazz. This is the 50 ml. And this is the 100 ml. And this came out in the late 80s, 88 if I'm not mistaken. And so this is my backup I got off of Enchante. Thank you, Anuj. This was my original 50 ml bottle that I got for a song. The juice level's here. He said it was about here, but it was actually very close to the top. And I love this fragrance because it reminds me, when I wear it, for some reason, it reminds me of one of my favorite fragrances of all time, which is Guerlain's Heritage. And I don't see many people comparing that. I think it's because of the complexity, you know, of what it is. People compare this to SAR from Van Cleef & Arpels. They actually compare this to YSL Pour Homme. But for me, it's, you know, it's probably closer to, if I had to make a comparison, it's probably closer to like Safari meets Heritage, in my personal opinion. This is a fantastic fragrance. These type of fragrances I mentioned in a previous video, Escada Pour Homme, giving me that Heritage vibe. And for some reason, that late 80s to early 90s time frame, before the aquatics came in the mid 90s and washed everything away, I love what they were doing with men's fragrances, and that's why I have a backup. And I've got my 50 ml that I'm currently trudging through now. I need to wear these favorites more, because when you have a big collection, you try to wear everything. Today, you know, I told you I'm wearing the Paul Sebastian Fine Cologne, which is, I'm glad to wear it. It's the first time really wearing it. But really, this is what I want to be wearing. And so YSL Jazz, if you can find these old bottles, by the way, I have to say it again. I've said it for the last three. I'll say it again. They discontinued this bottle. They then stuck it in a clear bottle that had a similar, these are supposed to be like piano keys. If you can see, you can kind of see the way that the bottle is shaped like a piano. They did away with this bottle, and they stuck it in an all clear bottle that said Jazz on the back, similar to one of the flankers I'm going to show you. And then they did away with that clear bottle and stuck it in this basic bottle again. And I hear it's been very much watered down in this formulation. So if you can find this one or the next one that's clear, that's what you want to get. But if you like classic masculines like the ones that I listed, also Fragrantica shows it's comparable to Pasha de Cartier, the EDT. I can't speak to that, but I will say, if you like fragrances like Safari, Heritage, you know, this is something to take a very close look at. And the quality here, I mean, if you compare this to, you know, YSL Y or La Nuit de l'Homme, you know, everyone pumps up that blue electrique. It's not for me. I mean, this is what YSL, you know, to go from this to La Nuit de l'Homme blue electrique is chasm. I mean, you know, you talk about a house that really fell on its face. And this just shows, you know, where they were to where they are now. You know, they release stuff like YSL Y. It's like, why? Why are they even bothering to release those type of fragrances, you know? But anyways, that is Jazz. And then I want to show you a couple flankers. One is a fragrance called, it's called Jazz Prestige. And Jazz Prestige is a take on YSL Jazz that is supposedly a little bit more floral. So if you thought that, you know, YSL Jazz, the original, was just a little bit too, you know, masculine for you, and you wanted something more round, easier to wear, you know, amped up florals, amped up lavender, amped up fruity notes, this is what you would want to check out. This is getting very hard to find. I'm glad Anuj found me a bottle. It's only a 50 ml, but just to complete the collection, I'm very, very glad to have it. I'm not sure who the perfumer is, but I can tell you that on this next flanker, which is Live Jazz, this is a fresher fragrance that came out towards the end of the 1990s. And this was made by Pierre Bourdon. And he's gotten so much press lately with the whole Creed fiasco that I feel like a lot of frag heads are going to start hunting down some of his fragrances. This used to be a cheapie. You could find this for $20 to $30 on the discount rack. Now these bottles are going for 150, 200, you know, 250 for 50 ml. That's what this is. But this is basically a fresh, it was launched in 1998. It's a fresh fragrance that utilizes mint, grapefruit, lemon, and then there's that interesting note of rhubarb and coriander. I love coriander as a spice in fragrances, by the way. And this is a summer flanker, but it's beautiful. Again, Pierre Bourdon's signature fresh touch that he perfected in, you know, green Irish tweed, and then later on it with cool water. I have green Irish tweed. I don't have cool water, but this is another freshie that he did. And this is YSL Live Jazz. Again, I'll do full reviews on these discontinued fragrances in due time. Next is one of my favorite fragrances of all time. I don't have a backup bottle of this, and sometimes it kind of eats at my heart. I do have a bottle of Youth Dew, which is very similar to this, but I never sprung for the backup, but maybe one day I will. It's Opium for Women, 1977. In my opinion, one of the most influential fragrances of all time. The nose was Jean-Louis Suizac and Raymond Chalion again, joint. And a third perfumer Fragrantica has listed called Jean Amick, which I've never heard of before. But Jean-Louis Suizac also did the flanker I'm going to show you here in a little bit. This is one of the greatest Oriental fragrances ever created. They nailed the name. Look at the bottle. I mean, look at the detail. Look at the detail on the bottle. Just absolutely gorgeous. They just don't, I mean, they just don't make a presentation like this anymore, do they? And this is rich. This is heavy. This is the main notes that stick out to me are the cloves in the top. There's this bay leaf note again, which I love. You see it again in Jubilation 25 and a couple other fragrances we've talked about here just while chatting about these, you know, family portraits. And then in the base, there's this incense, myrrh, apopanax, tolu balsam, castoreum. There's this heavy labdanum benzoin feel. You know, this is a thick fragrance, and I love every single second of this. This is what perfumery, you know, used to be. This is a women's fragrance, and a video that I will do is women's fragrances that I like to wear, and I wear this. I mean, this is, and I love wearing this. Like I said in another video, God bless the women of the 1970s that they wore stuff like this. It is unbelievable. This is one of the greatest Orientals ever made. They obviously watered it down as the versions went on. If you can find an old, this is just the normal 3.3 ounce EDT. It's made by, I can't tell just by looking here, but it does say inflammable and flammable, which I know they used to show on those older bottles. It's got the 5-digit batch code. But anyways, Opium, the original for women. If you want to study old perfumery, you know, if you like Orientals, if you like amouages, for example, this is one that will completely, you know, knock you off course. It is just, it is a revelation. And then, you know, speaking of flankers, they did a male flanker called Opium Pour Homme, which I have the EDT. I wish I had the heavier EDP because I like this fragrance. It has this soft, spicy anise. Again, star anise again, just like this. Star anise note. But this is supposed to be a little bit heavier. It's supposed to be a male take on the Oriental DNA. It's nowhere near as good as the original. I mean, I'm glad to have this, but I honestly wish I just had a second bottle of this because this is much more to my liking. But I like the anise note. I like what they did here. Jacques Cavalier was the perfumer here. It just feels a little light sometimes. There's this, you know, blackcurrant, pepper, Tolu balsam feel in the base, but it does feel a little light. It's cedary. Even though most people would wear this in the winter, I would probably even wear this more in the heat and stick with the original Opium for real cold weather, which we don't get much of here in Texas. But if it does get really cold and I get the Opium vibe, there is one other fragrance that Rich Mitch, you guys know the Duck. He's one of the greatest vintage you know, hunters and content producers on YouTube, and he's also become a very close friend of mine. We chat almost every day about this stuff, but he uncovered this, and I have to say, I think this is the best discovery that he has made in all of his recommendations to the Fragcom. And I picked up on this, and I got a bottle, and I instantly bought a backup bottle. And if you know, you know what's coming. It's Opium Secret de Parfum. This is a flanker. So I told you that the original Opium came out in 1977. So the Secret de Parfum came out in 1992. The same perfumer who did Opium actually did the reformulation, or did the flanker here, Jean-Louis Suizac, which when you can keep the same perfumer, you can keep that same thread running through the fragrance. And what they basically did here is they amped up a note, and it's listed in Fragrantica as red myrrh. Now, I don't know what red myrrh is. If anyone knows, let me know. I'd love to learn more about it. But this is one of the best myrrh fragrances I've ever smelled. I got a 100 ml backup. I have a 50. And I scored the 100, and you can see the backup I got from Enchante actually lists the notes right there. And so this was a tester, and just to show how much I trust him, I mean, I got this a month or two ago, and I never even sprayed it because I know it's been stored properly, and like I said, I trust him without fail. But it shows mandarin, citron, bergamot, girofle, which I don't know what that is, rose, jasmine, myrrh, I think this is in French, vanilla, patchouli, amber, and then benzoin. And so if you like those heavier fragrances, resinous, the myrrh in this is just outstanding. There's also a marigold note listed in Fragrantica, which is here in the flanker, but it's not in the original. So don't be afraid that it's targeted towards women. It is absolutely one of the best Oriental fragrances I've ever got my nose on. Opium Secret de Parfum. Hidden gem. Serious hidden gem. Okay, next is coming to my favorite line in the YSL range. If you know what's coming, you know. Let's start with the flanker first, and then we'll do the original. The flanker is Body Kouros. And this is a vintage bottle. You can tell by this strange little piece on the bottom that it kind of sits on, which they did away with this after they realized how, you know, easy it is to kind of tip over. But the original bottles had this strange little stand, and this was done by Annick Minardo, who is one of the best cheapy fragrance producers, if you will. She produced Zaro Visit. She produced Lolita Lampica. This gets compared to Lolita Lampica, and I do see that comparison. Lolita Lampica, all masculine, I should say. I see that comparison. This is another fragrance that has some interesting notes in it. It has the note of eucalyptus, which I've only ever really seen in Royal Mayfair by Creed. That's the only eucalyptus note I can ever see, but it works beautifully with this cedar, incense, and benzoin in the base. It does feel synthetic. It came out in the early 2000s. It does feel synthetic, but for what it is, prices are starting to get a little bit higher, I think, on this. But if you like Anique Minardo's work, this is one to definitely check out. And this is Body Kouros. And now, onto the main event, which is one of the greatest fragrances of all time, top 5 for sure, and that is Kouros. And if you know, you know. This is musky. I said this was musky, and this has nothing on this. But this is more animalic musk. I enjoy this much more, believe it or not. My scent of the day just has this, it doesn't have that animalic touch. I love the civet. I love the honey in this. This is a vintage bottle because of the shoulders. And this is actually a bottle I got from Le Parfumé that I've never sprayed. This is the bottle I've been taking from. It's the exact same, basically, setup. You can kind of see there are some differences in the bottles. If you really, really get into it. For me, I look for the, shoulders. The silver shoulders will tell you that it's older. The newer stuff is all white, and it has been reformulated. And then the crown jewel of the Kouros collection is the 100 ml, compared to the 250s I just showed you from Parfums Corp. I don't have the version Rich Mitch was saying on his stream, Charles of the Ritz. I don't have the Charles of the Ritz version. If I could find that, that would really complete this. But you can kind of see how the writing even looks different. It's more glossy on this one. This is a different distributor of Kouros. Rich Mitch says this is the story of a man showering. It starts out dirty, and then it becomes clean as it goes on. There is that note of geranium, which I mentioned earlier. It's clean, but also, can be a little bit, minty smelling from time to time. But this is all about the civet, the honey, and there is a leather note in the base listed. One of the, and this came out from a designer house. Remember, YSL was a designer. This came out in 1981, by the way, which is fantastic year for fragrance. This is just, what can you say? How could you describe Kouros to someone who's never smelled it? I don't know if I totally agree about a man showering. This feels primal, it feels like it touches something in the human brain that, was originally created when we were, hiding from tigers in caves. That's literally what this feels like to me. It feels like it touches something primal inside of you. And, this could be hard to wear for some people. I used to only try to wear this in the winter, but honestly, now I've said I'll wear it whenever I want, just because it was holding me back from enjoying the fragrances that I loved the most. An interesting story, Pierre Bourdon, you can read about it in that book, Ghost Perfumer, but he had a very strained relationship with his father, you could say. And his father never publicly praised him. He actually put him down. Just ripped into him. But one thing his father did, his father wore Kouros. And Pierre Bourdon thought that Kouros was too animalic, that no one would ever wear it, that it's it's outside of societal norms to walk around smelling like something like this. And his dad, who always basically put him down and told him how much trash all of his fragrances were, and now he's the greatest perfumer of his generation. and he wore this. This is what he wore. So he never gave him a compliment while he was alive, but this was his signature scent. Honestly, if you made me pick 5, fragrances and said you can only wear those 5, this would be one of them for sure, because this is, as your nose matures in perfumery. There was a quote once, I forget by who, maybe Jean-Paul Guerlain, maybe someone else, but the quote was that good perfumery should take you back the first time you smell it. That the first time you get your nose on this, it should shock you. And if you've never smelled this before, this will shock you when you first spray it. It has that pissy civet, but I love the animalic honey. I love honey as a note. It's actually one of my favorite notes. But YSL Kouros, if you can find the vintage bottle with the shoulders, great. If you can find a Parfums Corp, even better. And if you can find a Charles of the Ritz version, even better still. So I hope you guys are seeing the picture properly, because I tried to, flip it around now so it'll come through, because it was coming through backwards. So again, trial and error since I'm a small channel, but this is probably going to wrap up my family portraits. I know I've rambled for 36 minutes, and if you someone told me I should be asking you guys to like and subscribe, which, just seems a little bit strange to me. I figure if you guys like the content, then great, like and subscribe. That's what I do anyways. But if you like the content, like and subscribe. And I really do enjoy, having the back and forth in the comments. So let me know what you think. I love interacting with everybody. That's something that, has really come out of me creating these videos, is the interaction has just been stellar. So I'll try to respond to every single comment that I can. And if you have any suggestions on more videos, let me know. But I hope everyone had a very Merry Christmas. And we'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks, guys. Bye now.